as a society, we're spending more time in this unbecoming place right now. We're undoing things. We're starting to see things that need to be undone and unbecome. It is ugly. It is bumpy. It is uncomfortable. There is friction. There is transformation. It is not pretty, but it is necessary. That transforming the collective requires that we transform as individuals. That is our work. It is our work, like Tikkun Hanefesh, where we have to bring ourselves back into wholeness, to take our fragmented parts and bring them into wholeness. We need to do that with the world as well. Have you been feeling disconnected, worried, or overwhelmed in life, or when you look at the state of our country and the world? If so, you're not alone. I'm right there with you, and you're in the right place. Hi, friends. Welcome to the Connected Way podcast. I'm your host and minister of connection, Rev Dev. I believe that connection is the healing path forward for us as individuals and as a collective. So on this podcast, we will explore all things connection to self, to others, to the land, and spirituality. But specifically in season 1, we are looking at the coming election through the lens of connection, how we can get informed and involved in politics and this election in digestible and engaging ways, how our spiritual and cultural beliefs and values intersect with and inform politics, how this election fits in with the larger evolution of our society, and how we can actually connect with people in these polarizing times. I know that connection has the capacity to move the needle in this election and in our individual and collective evolution. May it be so. Let's get into it. Well, friends, we are less than a week away from the election. On Sunday, I will be sharing with you some final pre-election reflections, including what I'm seeing, what I'm feeling, what I'm believing and valuing, and how that's been impacted or changed by all of these conversations that I've had throughout this podcast. But today, I want to specifically talk about some of the bigger picture spiritual and philosophical concepts that have been addressed in episodes in the last few weeks. One of the goals of this podcast was to look at how this election connects with larger themes and concepts of transformation at work in the world. The reason I wanted to bring these ideas into the podcast was because seeing the larger picture in challenging times has always brought me solace, hope, meaning, and purpose. Having some understanding that what I'm experiencing or what we're experiencing on a grander scale is part of something bigger at work, that there may be some purpose behind it. And that gives me hope and also gives me some purpose in what I'm doing and what I'm experiencing. And explanation helps. So we've been exploring some of these themes and thoughts about why things seem so challenging right now. Why does it feel like so many people are in crisis? Why do people we know and people we don't know seem to be really going through it? What is going on here and what is the purpose behind it? So that's what we've been looking at. And I want to recap some highlights of those themes and thoughts about why this is happening and what is the larger picture of what is happening. And then how is that affecting us, which is not something that we've talked about that much on the podcast yet. All right. So I want to start by talking about episode 20, in which we connected with the incredibly powerful Pat McCabe. She is arguably my favorite teacher. And she has shared with us in that episode the indigenous teachings of interconnectedness and the hoop of life, how we are all connected and each species is responsible for our own segment on the hoop of life. And humans have not been heeding the one rule of Mother Earth, which is life. Above all else, life. And us not heeding that rule is impacting the entire system because our part of the hoop has degraded, and that's degrading the entire hoop. It's no longer flowing the way that it's meant to, and it's not connected the way that it's meant to. So this helps us to understand why we are experiencing what we are experiencing, and that we need to shift back towards the teachings and ways of Indigenous peoples that really highlight and lean on and point to interbeingness and interconnectedness and omnibeneficence, as Pat coined, That's how Indigenous cultures really thrive. And we have been degrading the hoop of life, and we must repair it by reconnecting and tending to the earth and potentially even prioritizing Mother Earth justice over human justice, like prioritize interconnectedness over just connection to our species. And that's a really powerful concept. So backtracking a little bit to the conversation with Rev Karla in episode 12, we talked about patriarchy. And she explains that the way forward, away from patriarchy and all of its impacts and destruction, is to reconnect to the divine feminine so that we can come back into balance and back into the balance that we are meant to have, specifically between the divine feminine and divine masculine energies. And it's about moving away from toxic masculinity. So this is also part of what we're navigating and being called to shift. So this is, again, part of what's going on that needs to be repaired in the world. It needs to be shifted. We need to transform from being a society in which feminine energy is completely overpowered by toxic masculine energy and back to a place where divine masculine energy, instead of toxic masculine energy, but divine masculine energy and divine feminine energy are in balance. So again, that's a huge transformation that we need to go through and that we're starting to shift into. Shiloh Sophia McCloud took this even a step farther for us in episode 17. She explained that the divine feminine is not quote unquote rising per se. That's language that's used a lot in more secular spiritual communities, is like the feminine rising. And it's not rising, according to Shiloh Sophia. It's actually that we're reconnecting to it. We are returning to her, to the divine feminine, to the divine mother. And in the process of that reconnection, as the energies of masculine and feminine are rebalanced, we are shifting from an era of domination, conquest, and colonization that has been going on for millennia to an era of collaboration, which is more the feminine energy. And that is a profound shift. We have this opportunity to contribute to that shift by reconnecting with the divine feminine energy, remembering ourselves in that connection. And that is a big transformation, going from an era of domination that has lasted for many, many, many thousands of years to an era of collaboration, which is what we are meant to be moving into next. So that's a massive transformation that we're going through. In episode 21, we had a conversation with Michelle Dench, who was the perfect astrologer for the show because she specifically is an evolutionary astrologer focusing on themes of evolution in individuals and the collective through looking at Pluto and the North nodes. I personally am not like an astrology buff. I don't know a lot of things. I have lots of friends who are really into it, and I'm always really fascinated by it. And I had known that there was a lot of sort of astrological significance to these many years that we've been navigating and specifically surrounding the election, but I didn't know like actual specifics. And my goodness, there was a lot of astrological significance that aligns with what's going on in the election. And in this time in general, and all of this time of sort of chaos and conflict and disconnection, that what we've been experiencing was completely validated by what Michelle was sharing about what's been going on with Pluto and the North nodes and what they mean. And she explained, like, yes, this has been challenging because of this. This is why. And also that we're going through this massive shift from individualism to collectivism. Sound familiar? And then finally, on Sunday, this past Sunday, in episode 22, in my conversation with Ganga, Devi, Braun, we talked about a lot of concepts and themes that give both purpose and framework for some of what's been going on in the world. So in Judaism's concept of Tikkun HaNefesh, it talks about how we are meant to be bringing the fragmented parts of ourselves back into wholeness, which is so powerful. And I am so glad that she introduced us to this concept because it's such an important part of our own personal work. and in Tikkun Olam, which is the repair of the world. So Tikkun HaNefesh is repair of the soul. Tikkun Olam is repair of the world. And I sort of think about that as like repair of the world's soul, the soul of the world. We are meant to be repairing the world by bringing the fragmented pieces of the world back to wholeness. This is also reflected in the Buddhist concept of bodhicitta, in which the motivation is to achieve enlightenment, which you could almost think about as bringing the fragmented pieces of oneself back into wholeness and back to divinity and interconnectedness. And you do that, you achieve enlightenment in order to return, incarnate again, and continually achieve enlightenment until all beings are liberated, because we are all connected, we are all one. And so again, this is about the need to return to the truth of our interconnectedness, our oneness. And this is a huge shift. It's a huge shift that we are navigating and that we need to navigate, and that needs to happen. Like the world needs to come back to interconnectedness. It needs to come back to wholeness. It needs to come back to divinity. It needs to come back to the truth of our wholeness and what that means. And then on top of that, Ganga and I also talked about integral theory and spiral dynamics. And then from a spiral dynamics perspective, she's hoping that Kamala Harris could move us forward on the spiral in the evolution of spiral dynamics and integral theory, rather than sliding backwards or remaining in the same state that we've been in. She's hoping that Kamala Harris will move us forward and move towards a transformation that would shift us from individualistic to a more collective focus. Sound familiar? So there's lots of overlaps in these themes, and it's so fascinating. And then finally, a new theory that I had never heard of that Ganga introduced me to is the fourth turning, or the Strauss-Howe generational theory. So she explained to us that this theory basically says that humanity moves through this huge cycle that lasts for like 80 to 100 years that has 4 sections, and each of the sections lasts for 20 to 30 years. So it starts with a high. That's the first sort of section, 20 to 30 years. Then an awakening, 20 to 30 years. The unraveling, 20 to 30 years. And then a crisis, 20 to 30 years. And it's understood that, and then it goes back to a high. So it's high, awakening, unraveling, crisis, high, awakening, and so on and so forth. So it's understood, basically, that we have apparently been in a crisis for the last 20 plus years. And many believe that it started actually with 9/11, which was in 2001, obviously. And so it's been 23 years. And Ganga specifically shared that she's hopeful that Kamala Harris getting elected could be the tipping point from the crisis into the high, where the cycle starts over. So here is a quote from one of the documents that I found when I was researching this after talking to Ganga. Quote, "The crisis is an era of destruction, exemplified through war, where institutional life is destroyed. However, as this period ends, institutions will be rebuilt. Society will discover the benefits of being part of a collective, and community purpose will take precedence again. And then the high, which follows the crisis that ended the previous cycle, is typified by strong institutions and social collectivism and weak individualism." End quote. I obviously really hope that this is the shift that we are experiencing and will really shift, especially in the coming weeks and months. And yet again, this is pointing to a breakdown of systems and a shift from individualism to collectivism. So again, the thinking is that this is a shift that we are in. So to recap all of that, we have talked to a whole bunch of amazing people about really fascinating and compelling themes and trends from different cultures, traditions, historical and philosophical perspectives. And what they sort of all point to is that, number one, we are in fact living in a very challenging time. That is valid. In fact, in one theory, we are actually in a state of crisis and have been for at least 20 years. And we are in this incredibly challenging time because as a society, we are generally really out of balance. The balance of masculine and feminine energies is out of balance, which is incredibly related to the balance being really off in terms of being an individualistic society that doesn't really care for humans that much. We don't take care of our fellow humans, but also we don't care for other species. And so that's out of whack also. The hoop of life has been degraded by the degradation and imbalance of our species completely. And everything is out of whack. And so we are in this sort of state of crisis where things are really not in the right place. The pendulum has swung way too far. And the second thing that all of these themes point to is that we are in a point of massive transformation, like huge transformation. This has shown up in every single one of these conversations. And it points to the fact that we need to move towards interbeingness and interconnectedness and omnibeneficence that all Indigenous cultures thrived within, understanding that we are a part of something so much bigger than just us, and that we don't have power over the earth, that we are a part of the earth and everything that it is a part of, and we are equally valuable as every other species, and we are just one part of the hoop. We are also transforming from being a society in which feminine energy is completely overpowered by toxic masculine energy and moving to a place where there's a balance of divine masculine and divine feminine energies that work together hand in hand. And that can show up in individual people and in the whole, as is true for the interbeing and interconnectedness. It's about the society seeing that we are interconnected, but it's also about individuals seeing that. And it's this back and forth, right? An individual understands it and then the society understands it and vice versa. We are also going from an era of domination to an era of collaboration. Again, individualism, individual gain, to collectivism and collaboration. So I hope that this conversation validates why things might feel particularly hard right now, and that it also gives you some semblance of an idea as to why things are so hard, why things are that they are on a larger scale, like why in the world are things the way that they are in the world. And maybe even it gives you a sense of purpose and meaning amidst the chaos and confusion. All of these transformations require breaking down existing systems and structures and ways of being and doing. They require that we unbecome in order to become. I have been seeing this for a while now, and each conversation like these episodes just reiterates what I've been seeing, feeling, and experiencing, and what I know a lot of you have been seeing, feeling, and experiencing, that we are currently largely in that space of unbecoming and becoming, where we sort of slide along that spectrum at different points. But I think as a society, we're spending more time in this unbecoming place right now. We're undoing things. We're starting to see things that need to be undone and unbecome. And to be clear, I'm very intentionally using this word, unbecoming. There are other words that I could be using, but this is the one that feels the most accurate because we are unbecoming something. But the process of no longer being a certain way or doing things a certain way, the process of unbecoming is in fact unbecoming. It is ugly, it is bumpy, it is uncomfortable, there is friction, there is transformation. It is not pretty, it is not easy, but it is necessary. Each of our guests have pointed to the fact that we're all part of this transformation. That transforming the collective requires that we transform as individuals. That is our work. It is our work, like Tikkun Hanefesh, where we have to bring ourselves back into wholeness, to take our fragmented parts and bring them into wholeness. We need to do that with the world as well. And doing it with ourselves does it with the world, and doing it with the world does it with ourselves. And I know that many of you are doing that work already, or you're starting to do that work, unbecoming from the way of being and values and structures that do not work. And you know it within yourself, within your soul, that it does not work. But the process of unbecoming so that we may become a different thing, the thing that we are meant to become, the way that we are meant to become, it is not easy. And it is especially not easy because we were trying to live a more collectively focused, connected life in a society that is built on individualistic, disconnected structures. That's really hard. So that makes it even more challenging, confusing, and lonely. And I know personally that it is really hard to do this work alone. That we are better off when we do things in community, especially these hard things, because we heal in community, we learn in community, we grow in community, and we thrive in community. And so I have finally brought a vision to life that I have had for years. A community to support all of us as we navigate these challenging times of disconnection. It is called the Connected Collective, and it is a community that is a place for those of us feeling called to live with more connection and intention in a world that seemingly breeds disconnection. It is for any of us that feel lonely, overwhelmed, hopeless, or lost sometimes and want to find meaning and purpose and contribute to positive change for ourselves and others in some way. It is for those of us who want to feel seen and safe and supported no matter what's going on. It's for those of us that are experiencing the friction and the bumpiness and the ups and downs of unbecoming so that we can become. And it is bumpy. Because not everybody is going through this, or not everybody is going through it at the same time or in the same way. And a lot of us have families or friends that are not going through it or not seeing it in the same way that we're seeing it. And this is hard. It's hard to go through transformation. And as we transform, the people around us sometimes don't transform with us, or they may transform in a different way. And that means that we can feel really alone. And so this community is for you if you're experiencing that at all. And if you're not experiencing it and you're able to do this work on your own, all the power to you. I would love to know how you're doing that because it's not easy. But if you're feeling like it would be good to connect with other people who are doing this work and other people who are navigating this experience of wanting to live more connected and other people who want to connect more and you want to connect more, then please consider joining this community. While it would be so nice to be in person all the time, living life together, we still live in a world that's really virtual, and that's what we live in right now. And so for now, this is an online community with plans to have in-person gatherings as soon as possible. Believe me, that is in the works. So there's an online and mobile platform that is super easy to use and offers consistent connection, so you can connect however much and whenever you want with the community. And there's all different kinds of ways to connect. I offer monthly themes that help you to deepen your connections spiritually and personally, because it's really about helping you to connect with one another. So that's deepening your connection to others, but it's also about deepening your connection to yourself, to your connected self, to your sense of inner wisdom and guidance. It is about helping you to remember your interconnectedness and connect with all that is. And then it's really about deepening your spiritual connection and spiritual experiences. And so I offer practices and different things that you can try out based on the theme. And so there's all kinds of resources in the collective for you to try out. And then there's great forums where you can connect with other people about the theme, and you can connect with people about something that you're experiencing, an experience of disconnection that you're having, or anything that's going on, any question that you have. And then also there's a place for you to share your spiritual experiences and ways that you have had spiritual experiences in the Magical More Forum, so that you continue to have spiritual experiences and continue to attune to those, which creates more connection. And then you're helping one another to connect. It's really amazing. So it's this incredible community full of resources, full of opportunities for connection, full of people who want to support you, where you can feel safe, seen, supported, and connected, and you can show up however you are. You are welcome no matter what is going on. And so I really hope you'll consider joining. It's only $33 a month to be a part of this incredible community. And if you sign up as a founding member now before November 9th, you'll actually get the first 2 months for $22.22. So I really hope you'll join me. And you can learn more about the Connected Collective and join the community at theconnectedway.com. So Regardless of whether or not you have a community, I hope that understanding some of these concepts has given you some insight into why things feel a bit more challenging these days, what may be going on the larger scale, and how you can contribute to these massive transformations that we're actually a part of. I will be sharing more pre-election insights and thoughts on Sunday, but in the meantime, stay connected however you can and engage in the election however feels good. And a final little side note. So this episode is coming out on October 30th, and tomorrow marks the beginning of a period of overlapping holidays all over the world. So if you have found my work through this episode or through this podcast, then you are not aware that I have a fascination with overlapping holidays. It's actually one of the reasons that I ended up in seminary, because holidays at overlapping times of the year actually really point to the interconnectedness of many, many, many religions. And I've been sharing about this on the Connected Way newsletter, which you can sign up for at theconnectedway.com. And then also on Instagram, I share about some of these things and some of the themes. But if you want to learn more about the evolution and similarities of Hindus' Diwali or Diwali, Celtic pagan All Hallows Eve and Samhain, secular Halloween and how it came to be and what it means, Christian All Saints' Day and All Souls' Day, and Mexico's Dia de los Inocentes and Dia de los Muertos, all of which are happening in the next 4 days. You can learn more about that on the blog and on all of my social media channels. You can find the blog at theconnectedway.com/blog. And my Instagram in particular is revdev_theconnectedway. And I'm putting up posts tomorrow morning on October 31st, so you can find them there if you're looking. All right. Thanks, friends. Thanks for listening to the episode, and thanks for being here with me. I will see you on Sunday. Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Connected Way. You can find all the resources mentioned in the show and even more resources in the show notes and on the podcast page at theconnectedway.com/podcast. Before you go, a note about sponsorship. This podcast is currently sponsored by me, Rev Dev, and you, the listeners. If you're interested in supporting the podcast and the work of The Connected Way, enhancing individual and collective connection to self, others, the land, and spirituality, you can donate on the podcast webpage. There is never any pressure or expectation, but if you feel called to support the work, any contribution of any amount helps, as do your good thoughts. And finally, I'd love to hear your biggest takeaway from today's show. What inspired you? What surprised you or made you think? Let me know by posting a comment on any of the posts or DMing me on Instagram, or of course, you can always send me a message on the website. Thanks again for being here, friends. May this podcast bring more connection to you and the collective. And so it is. See you next time.